And then when you hit transition, that music will play.
Tap, tap.
Ooh, we should close that front door.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Notes for this.
I actually don't hear the music.
What is it? Is the? Can you hear us talking?
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah.
we can just go live.
Okay.
And we'll just announce it.
Our title? Oh, you can't find
the intro music is not playing, which is
How about the slide?
yeah.
That's good. Slides up.
Are we all live?
Not yet. Delay. Should be live any second.
Yay. Welcome. We are live. We're here today to talk about the Ooda Loop. The title, as you may or may not have seen, is the fastest and best way to get ever-improving goals, systems, decisions, and success in life, asterisks, based on the work of Colonel Boyd and God.
That sounds exciting.
It's going to be one of the best shows ever. I was a little reluctant to say that because Sam is not
I
here.
was gonna say, are you saying that because
No, not at all, because Sam is awesome. I'm just saying it because I'm very excited about Ooda Loop, because you know how people hype things, and you've bought something from Amazon, I'm sure, where when you get it, then you're hideously disappointed.
Yeah.
I've had that. This is not going to be that. Ooda Loop can provide all of these things, and I wanted you to know I wanted everybody to note in the title the Oxford comma. Leslie is with us today. Are you a fan of the Oxford comma?
I am.
Yes,
Comma.
I think it organizes the thoughts.
Oh, definitely.
Now, some people think when I talk about the Oxford comma that I'm also objecting to the use of plural pronouns for a single person in this new world that we're in, but I'm not. I'm not doing that at all. Those are two different things. I'm going to have a t-shirt made up. It's just that
You and your t-shirts.
I think there's a lot of people. Has Greg joined us?
Yes, Greg's on. I just
Thank
said
you.
hi to him.
I
I
wanna
said
say
hello
thank
again,
you.
Greg.
Yeah, he joined us for our tour of the backyard.
He said Ooda comma, Ooda comma, Ooda comma.
That's right. It's an organizing principle, the Oxford comma.
Yeah.
So it just helps with clarity, I think. But here's why it's based on the work of Colonel Boyd and God. Because Colonel Boyd was actually just making an observation about how the human brain works. So some people think God created humans. Some people think evolution created humans. Some people think God created evolution that created humans. And some people don't think any of that. But they will acknowledge that the brains of humans work in amazingly different ways, but according to similar patterns. And this is what the Ooda Loop is going to do. It is the basis of every one of our best self-improving systems. And it is the basis of all improvement in human life. And just thinking about it consciously is going to make life better for you. So here's how it works. Essentially, Colonel Boyd was a fighter pilot and noticed, for example, his Air Force officers were flying against Russians in MiGs. And they had full hydraulic controls in the American planes. And in the MiGs, they had only partial hydraulic control. So the Soviet-era flyers, had to perform more tasks. And one of the things that happens in an Ooda Loop, and I'll describe what they are in a second, is that the more decisions you make and the more factors that are coming to bear, the slower your Ooda Loop is, which is observe, orient to what you've seen, decide, and act. So if you see a practical application of this in everyday life would be if you saw brake lights go on in the car ahead of you, you would observe that. You'd orient to it. You'd say, I'm coming up on a car. It appears to be braking. It may be coming to a total stop or slowing down. So you've observed. You've oriented to that. You've got to decide what to do. Now, I've noticed in New Jersey, a common reaction to that is to step on the accelerator and speed up toward the brake lights.
Well, that only makes sense.
In Pennsylvania, it wasn't true. So there could be a turn signal too. Like in Pennsylvania, you might see a turn signal indicating that somebody's going to turn. And so you observe it, you orient to that, you think, oh, they have a left turn signal on. It's pretty likely they're going to turn left. and you decide what you're going to do, slow down, move over to the right, whatever it is that you're going to do, and then you begin to act based on that. But that person, if they've got a left turn signal but they don't know it, may veer into the right lane, so you've got to OODA loop again. And they may see you and then veer back into the left lane. So it's a constant and ongoing process. Keeps you safe on the road. It makes your business and your marketing and your life better when you become aware of the OODA loop. Here's the thing with Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Generally speaking, I've observed in Pennsylvania that when someone puts on a left turn signal, they will turn left. It's not 100%. In New Jersey, first of all, the turn signal is not something that I see very often.
Yeah.
And when I do...
Do you think it exists there?
It does.
They just don't use it?
No, I see it's on the car.
Advanced
I don't think it comes with BMWs. I think it's just...
or the Audi.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, we're expressing a lot of deep-seated issues.
So if you drive a BMW or an Audi and you're from New Jersey...
You're never going to signal a lane change.
You should probably go back to school and learn how to drive.
This may not be your show.
No.
Although, like, I like to give it out, so I have to be able to take it too.
Most of our viewers and listeners are actually from Pennsylvania,
There's a lot in California.
California, and Australia.
And a few in Scotland.
So
Well, Jamie and Tyson are now on. Your daughter's Jamie. So
Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland. Welcome to Maryland.
And Tyson Franklin is on as well.
Go Eastern Shore. And Tyson Franklin is just north of Bundaberg in Australia.
Australian.
Now do that again, and we'll see if Tyson thinks you're doing a good Australian accent.
All right, look at me, Tyson. Am I doing all right? Is it all right? I watch a lot of Australian TV, so I try to mimic
Not gonna like it, I'm telling you. He one
He's
time
laughing.
shouted at me. Tyson, we have a question for Australia. It's all reversed down there with the left and the right lanes. But do people signal the turn and then make the turn? And then we'll hop off this. I just used it as an example because there are genuinely amazing things that come from this. And we're going to show you how we use it predominantly in marketing, management, and training in business. But you'll see how there are all kinds of application to the OODA loop in life. And since Sam's not here, I have a book. Now this book is not for everybody. But once you hear this, and once you look at the OODA loop, did we get the slide of the OODA loop diagram?
It was up originally.
Yeah.
We can pop it up.
Yeah.
Can we pop that up without any trouble? Once you see this and start recognizing how many ways that you can use it, I think you might become interested in a book like this. This is called Science, Strategy, and War. No comma after strategy,
No.
which is disturbing.
So they don't want you to think about it.
Yeah, I guess they're just trying to come in under the radar. And the sub-heading is the strategic theory of John Boyd, I would say Colonel Boyd. It is Franz P.B. Osinga is the author. So this is one you might have to.
We'll
And
have to
here,
grab a link for Steve Richardson.
oh, that's right. For Steve, we'll get a link.
He'll ask for all the links, but I don't know if he buys the books or not.
You know what
Here, I'll
Steve
get it right
might
now.
do is he gets our links, and then he doesn't want to buy an affiliate.
Yeah, we'll have to wait for the affiliate link.
Yeah.
Right. He opens it opens that one and then opens a private browser.
On the Tor, what is that that dark net browser? Tor?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretending like I don't know.
We do it the slide up.
I get all of my, what sort of stuff do people buy on the black web, like Silk Road?
Drugs.
Machine guns,
Machine guns.
grenade launchers.
We're just talking about this out of hypothetical.
Yes, not that I have no use for any of those things. Although I have, and I know this appeals to Tyson, almost all Australians, I have talked about what would happen if I ever went totally rogue. And I would load up then.
Why does that appeal to Australia?
I don't know, they just seem to love anarchy.
What did he say?
So, did Tyson like your
He did. He said WTF. And he wrote always signal. And also, hi, Greg.
Oh, Greg. for being here. Are Tyson and Greg liking and loving the show?
They are, yeah. We're getting lots
We
of
should
likes.
quickly promote Tyson's show, the 365-day mental and physical challenge. And he's on day like so he's got a year, 260. Yeah, it's in the 260s. And he just featured 2 of our shows, by the way.
Oh, very
So
nice.
Australians have seen them.
All right.
Yeah, he listens to excuse me, listens to a podcast every morning and walks.
Yep.
And then he videotapes himself for like a minute or to 3 minutes and recaps what he learned on the podcast.
So he's getting physical exercise, which as Sam has observed, walking is the foundational, form of exercise. Everybody should do some every day. And then Tyson listens to a podcast while he's walking, so he's improving the brain and the body. And then he shares it, which is, a beautiful gesture.
Tyson says he's on 263.
263, which is impressive.
Yeah.
And he's doing it from all over the world. Tyson hasn't really been north of Bundaberg in ages. He's like in Japan, and
He's on a cruise a little while ago.
Yeah, and there seem to be some unfortunate things going on there. I think he had a good time.
I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that.
Well,
It's
not
our family friendly.
right. We don't have the explicit rating. So a couple of things here about Colonel Boyd, and then we'll get to the application. So Colonel Boyd is using this: observe, orient, decide, act, repeat. So that's a little cycle, and then it comes back and repeats, so that you're constantly doing it. And his theory was, as a fighter pilot, that in a dogfight, if you were able to execute your Ooda Loop more frequently and more efficiently. So like when you moved, the MiG pilot had to do all of these things that your pilot wasn't doing. So in addition to making all of his other decisions, he had to use more physical energy to move the hydraulics of the aircraft. So the movement of American pilots, based on their better technology, added a decision factor to the Soviet pilots, which slowed down the Ooda Loop. And the theory behind Ooda in this type of warfare example is that if you're executing it more often and tiring the enemy out, and you get inside their Ooda Loop, you're going to win that dogfight. So here's how that applies here. If you are looking for ways to genuinely improve the quality of your marketing, and this is where you're going to come in because you're in the process of repeating a Ooda Loop and you're starting for a new company to do it from scratch, so we're going to talk about that. So if you want to improve your marketing, if you want to improve your systems for managing and marketing, and if you want to improve your processes and systems for hiring and then training people, Ooda is just a phenomenal way to go. But we were out in the yard talking about gardening. Gardening is a slower Ooda Loop, but it is an Ooda Loop nonetheless. So there, we plant certain things in certain kind of soils. We have a hypothesis. We know that certain kinds of plants grow in a more acidic soil. So Alex was working with the blueberries, and he's put a very acidic mulch on there.
Sure, pine needle.
Pine needle mulch, and that's breaking down. And so we're improving the acidity. So we have a theory that's going to improve the quality of the berries. But we have all kinds of other things that we have to consider, like how much water are they supposed to get, how much sunlight. And what we need to do, though, is to keep track of that so that we plant things in the best locations based on our hypothesis, but then we observe how they do. So I planted a particular plant based on the advice of an English cottage gardener. By the way, everything that guy suggested that we plant 12 years later is now dead. So he had a bad Ooda Loop. But I have a good Ooda Loop, and I kept going through and moving things from where he said to put them.
Yeah.
And planting things in those places that thrive and survive. So a little bit faster Ooda Loop is the example of the turn signal or the brake lights or the MiG fighter pilot. In between, though, are examples of the Ooda Loop in marketing. So let's use your example. And Leslie, you could jump in anytime, because you have open Ooda Loops going on in your video business.
I sure do. I've always known it as PDCA, though.
How does that work?
That's plan, do, check, act.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So, Alex, you're doing a project for a new business, and they have a theory, which you're helping them develop, about who's going to buy. But they don't have any well-developed value propositions. They don't know the kinds of things that the buyers might be interested in. So tell us a little bit about how you would think through that with a client get that, and then we're going to talk about how you test it and repeat the OODA loop over and over again.
So we come up with a product idea or a business idea, and then we go through a whole whiteboarding process of mapping out the exact path or journey that we want that particular hypothesis customer to take. So we go through, and we've mentioned this a couple different times. I think we mentioned it on the last one with the avatar, the client avatar that we create. So we create a client avatar, that's part of the hypothesis. We think it's going to be this person. And then we create the product around that, or if you have a product, this can be done, over and over and over again if things shift, which they do, and we've done that with the credit products. But with the new ones, generally we implement something, we create it and then implement it, and then we observe it and how it's behaving, and then we orient based off of how it's behaving, then we decide on things that we need to do to take action, and then we take action to implement new things or change things around and optimize it to be to sell towards that client. Or if we find that we have a whole nother avatar that we missed, which sometimes happens when you're going through and testing, then we can orient and reorient.
So an explanation of that might be, you think you're going to sell to women between the ages of 27 and 39.
And you end up selling to 50-year-old men.
Exactly, and it sometimes happens, and you've guessed wrong about who your audience is. And that means you're going to go back and maybe tweak or rewrite the product because it needs to be in a different voice, as well as
especially the marketing language that you're using is big, or how you're interacting with them from a retention standpoint. So they might come in, they might buy the product because you've used marketing language that appeals to a 50-year-old man instead of a 30-year-old woman. But then inside that product, there's language, or in your retention sequences, there's language that doesn't apply to a 50-year-old man that, even though they bought it, they still need that changed language to kind of keep them.
Oh, Tucker's a guest today.
We also have some other people joining us.
Nice.
Benjamin Garth joined us, and Thomas McNeely joined us.
And Thomas?
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen,
Nice.
thank you.
Tubby.
Remember to like and love the show, and then share it. So here's the thing is, this is one of those things where people say to me all the time, oh, I do this. But then when we examine their processes, they don't at all. So we have to do the OODA loop on things like titles.
We should note that to even do the OODA loop, you have to have, if you're just starting out or just coming out with a new product, you have to have something in place that you can test and observe how it's behaving. So if you're coming up with new products constantly, you can't do the OODA loop until you've started that process of making it active and starting the process of testing and putting your hypothesis to the test.
Well, I will say this, that a lot of times people want to develop a whole product and they think they know who will buy it. They go to all this trouble and spend thousands of dollars, and they hire editors, and they do all of these things, only to find out that either that market interest is not interested or no one is. So one of the things we recommend is starting out with infographic, checklist, short report, white paper, blog. So now you can take advertising and drive it to the blog. You could do these things and see if the people you think are interested in that topic are interested in it, and the people that you think might be interested in particular kinds of titles of reports and things like that. So you're starting to build your value proposition. What is it that you're going to do for everybody else in these kind of mini topics? And then go to a book, then go to
at least a minimum viable product. And then off of that, going back through the loop and changing things.
So we would OODA loop all of these different things. We might OODA loop who's the audience. We might OODA loop what is the title. We might OODA loop what's the title of blogs or other content that might support it. We might OODA loop what's the checklist, what would be in the infographic. So what I was saying before is, well, we have people say, I do this all the time, but they don't, or they do it infrequently or less frequently than they should be. So the key here, the biggest takeaway from today's show is going to be this. Use, because this is easy now, it used to be hard, use your calendar to schedule automatically repeated observations of this. So if you're carving out time on Mondays for product creation or product improvement or to build a marketing campaign or to build a lead magnet or to take a bunch of blogs and put them together in a book that's going to become a product, have a repeating session on this. Same with training. So we have a theory that if we treat people a certain way on the telephone and we ask them a certain number of questions and we build rapport with them, and that we can do that in a reasonable period of time, that we want to cover certain topics so that they'll know what's going on when they come to see us. Once we find out that that particular way of doing it works really well, now we want to maybe do some phone recordings of a couple of those calls, do some transcripts, look to make sure there is consistency, that we're really covering all of those things. And now that we see, yes, we're doing it, yes, we have consistency, yes, it's producing a result we want, now we can document it and train. Now we also have a control. What if we notice that we need people to fill out a questionnaire, but 10 or 20% of the people that come to the appointment don't have it? Can we add something back in there that says you can't have your appointment unless you filled this out? And then what if people are prickly about it? Well, why are you ordering me to fill it out? Maybe we need to say you can't have the appointment, you have to fill it out, but here's why it's all about you. And we can't do what we need to do for you unless you fill it out. So now, because of Ooda Loop, we've gone back to see, okay, we've observed, we have a theory, we've oriented to that, we've produced these scripts that we could use for training, we've decided, we've acted, it's worked. Now we know that works. Let's go back and tweak it and find out how could we make it better.
How do you, in your marketing systems and business systems, figure out the most optimal time? Because a lot of people, what happens is they have a product, and even if they do some form of Ooda Loop, they don't do it often enough or at the right times. So how do you start identifying before it's too late when to do this?
It's a great question, and it's different, of course, for each type of activity. So, like, just observe the Ooda Loop with the car brake light example. You're going to run through the Ooda Loop many times in a few seconds there. Whereas with building out a product and building in improvements to it and adjustments to the changing environment, that tends to be for us. Now, so I'm a trusted estates lawyer. So the system is changing, and between state law changes and court changes and legislative changes at the federal government and the Internal Revenue Code and things, they all add up to be a fairly large number of changes in a year. But for us, what we've discovered is if we take each type of service we provide, so we provide pretty sophisticated estate planning services where people protect their kids from marriages and divorces and lawsuits and things like that. And then we have IRA planning, where if they've got a lot of money in an IRA, they could do that. And then we've got elder law planning. So we have these three sort of big groups of products and services. We go through a very detailed Ooda Loop of that once every quarter. So each of those is being examined every quarter, which means we're hitting it at least once, and if we're really aggressive about it, twice a year. We're whiteboarding that so that we see everything. Because here's the thing about the Ooda Loop. The more factors they are, the more it's going to slow you down. Human reaction time just takes longer. Multiple factors have to be considered carefully, and sometimes the interaction of multiple factors does not produce the result you would think it would. So the more complex the system, the slower the Ooda Loop is, and the slower the changes in the system, the more time there can be. So the quick answer to yours is that the nature of the beast is going to dictate how fast you can get through it when you do it and how often you have to repeat it. But most businesses would be killing it in the marketplace if they went through the Ooda Loop for their best-selling products, meaning not just the ones that sell the most, but the ones that make them the most money. And if they could figure out how to sell more of those, meaning they have the highest margin. So people like them. People are willingly paying them more money because they're getting a real benefit from that. So if you could go through that and notice little changes that are taking place in the market earlier, if you did that 2 to 3 times a year, you would be light years ahead of the MIG pilots who are your competition. So the quick answer is, generally speaking, the more complicated the system, the longer it takes to do it when you do it, and the slower changing environment, the more time you can take in between. But I would say that every business should be doing this with their best-selling things, maybe the top 20% of the SKUs that they have or the things that they're selling, because those could be changing. What was once your second or third best-selling product with your second and third best margin might be becoming your best margin because, in my case, of a change in the law or something like that. If a guy clung tenaciously to selling people federal estate tax planning, then when the federal government in 2013 retroactively changed how much you could protect without having to do that planning to almost $10 million per couple, if I had never been paying attention to that and not reacting to it and prepared for it, I'd have been already like a year behind at that point. Here's the other thing about it, is that there are factors that color your judgment about these things. So if you're driving in Pennsylvania and you see a left turn signal, you generally have a belief rooted in past experience that the person is going to turn left. Now in New Jersey, you might just say, "My God, what is that?" and slow down, or like wildly stop your car, or speed up into it. Right, we've seen all those reactions. We just had a somewhat bad experience in New Jersey. I'm not saying everybody in New Jersey has this problem, I'm just saying in Pennsylvania, you see the left turn signal, you think there's going to be a left turn. Here's the problem with Ooda, is that your observation and your orientation and your decisions are going to be based on past experiences and filters and beliefs. And like, for example, the normalcy bias. We're going to have a show on all these cognitive biases that dictate our behavior. So if you hear shooting, if you hear the sound of a gun going off, you tend, because of the normalcy bias, to not think it's an active shooter situation, but to think it's a car backfire or something. You're kind of in denial for a little while. So here's the effect that that has on the Ooda Loop. Ooda Loop at the big strategic level, which should be done, as we're saying, once or twice a year, is it's hard to do on your own, which is one of the reasons, I don't know, Leslie, in your business, but I run a mastermind, I participate in 2 masterminds, you're in a couple of masterminds, you help me with the one that we do.
It's always good to have a second checker. One of the best things that we do is like screen tests. So we have people sit down, like with you guys are sitting in chairs, I'm checking the lighting, I'm framing it, and then you take a photo or you have it on a monitor, and the second person or the director or whomever else you're working with on set comes, sees the way you framed it, sees the lighting, and double checks it for you. Because you might have an actor come in, they have a hot spot, you might have this, that, or the other thing that you would never think about unless you've had previous experience with it.
And there are videographers and photographers who we think of as being way better than the others because they're more aware of their own biases and the variables, so they have a checklist to go through them. It's kind of like a pilot. They're just not going to leave it to chance. So instead of like this happens to me when people take pictures of me for various media or things like that. You know, I saw a photo of me at a speech the other day where I had what appeared to be a faux hawk, just because my hair had like somehow risen up. Whoever took that picture,
I said you have the same style as Donald Trump.
it was horrifying. But whoever took that picture was just not paying attention to that or thinking about that. Whereas other people, I've had other photographers do stuff for me for a magazine or a newspaper or something, where one just takes a picture and it looks awful and you look horrible, and people sometimes, psychologists or psychiatrists will call and ask if I need any help when those pictures appear.
I had one of those, and then High Point decided to plaster it all over and in their magazine, and it was awful.
No, a lot of stuff, especially when you're doing narratives, not live stuff, where you can stop and go. You actually have a job of a line producer who's checking to make sure everything's the exact same as when before you cut. Because if you have and people catch it in TV shows all the time, they see the little mistakes. So it's literally someone's job to constantly be Ooda Loop.
Like the melting ice cream cone or the...
Exactly.
But, so here's the thing. If cognitive bias, your personal bias, beliefs that you have about what's really going on in your business, I have professionals and business people tell me in their practices and their businesses, no, X, Y, and Z is going on. We hired a receptionist for that. We trained her. But then when we record the incoming calls, we find out that what they thought was happening is not happening at all. And, you know, they believed with a fervent passion that it was happening. So one of the the things that we do, like here's a field manual that helps people with Ooda Loop at Business Black Ops every year. We run through a series of exercises and whiteboard exercises for a particular product or for a business, or we may even do an Ooda Loop kind of whiteboarding process for a lead magnet or something that's going to generate interest. And we walk them through in front of 10 or 12, or out there at that particular one, 30 or 40 other people who are looking at that business without the bias, because they come from, somebody's in the real estate business, somebody is a psychologist, somebody is a high-level coach, somebody is running a law practice, somebody's running a medical practice. So they're all seeing each step of the way without the same bias. And you often will hear somebody contribute something from, they'd say like, well, in our world, we do this. And your first reaction is, oh, either I already do that, or we can't do that in my business because, but that's usually a warning that you're not paying attention to that. So what happens in that kind of context is we can dig in a little bit, examine what the biases are, get multiple alternatives. So I'm not discouraging people from doing the Ooda Loop more frequently on their own. I'm just saying they will optimize it if they do what you do and have a checker, and they will, optimize it exponentially if you find a really skilled operator that can take you through a mastermind, somebody to facilitate a mastermind like we do. So if you want one of these field manuals, everybody that comes to Business Black Ops gets one. And so to get it, you go to www.3daystosuccess.com.
Number 3.
Yeah, the number 3.
Yeah. T-O.
And then, or you could also call Lisa, who will no doubt be. I'm not gonna, Lisa, I'm not going to give out your cell phone.
That'd be rude.
It'd be rude and yet sort of exciting to see what would happen.
We also have Wes Davenport joined us, and Chris Jeffrey joined us.
And Chris. Great. Thank you, guys. You can also call Lisa at 610-933-8069 and just ask about Business Black Ops, which will be this fall. And we're also thinking about doing something, so if you're interested in this, let us know. Call Lisa. We're thinking about having a day before with a sort of intensive with 3 or 4 people who will spend the entire day just on their businesses, doing the whiteboarding process and Ooda looping through many, many different aspects of your business. So if you want one of those spots and you're coming, you have to be attending Business Black Ops, but if you'd like one of those, or if you, I suppose, if you're in the Business Black Ops family, you've done that before, so you know what's going on, and you can't come to the whole event, you could grab one of these spots. So just call Lisa at 610-933-8069. So do we have any questions on Ooda Loop so far? Because we're going to go through a number of ways in which you can use it.
We did have a question from Greg about explaining more on creating an avatar, but he just went to dinner. So
he did.
Dinner beckoned him.
Well,
I can email him, or we can post the thing that...
Yeah. So Alex has a really good avatar creation, modifying Ooda Loop kind of tool that you can just use repeatedly. And I have a really great one here. So we could email that to Greg.
Greg, I think, is signing up for 3 Days to Success as well, or Business Black Ops.
Yes, Greg's coming to Business Black Ops, so he'll be immersed
there
in
as well.
Ooda Loop. Yeah, he'll be
And avatar creation.
And avatar creation, yeah.
Kelsey Trainer?
Yes.
Trainer
Hey,
is
how are you?
As well?
Esquire.
Very nice.
Yeah. New, not new. I think you're a year in. I saw a picture of her law school graduation, and it was one of those memories from a year ago, but I thought that it had just been like a few weeks back. That's how time is worth things. Does she have a question, or we're just saying hi?
No, just saying hi.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for joining us. So let's go through a couple of ways, and everybody can jump in, that you might use Ooda in business, and then let's go through a couple in personal life, and then we'll let everybody go. Have a great Sunday. But now that we know what it is, which is a process that you want to repeat, if you're in a fast-moving, fast-changing environment, you want to repeat it more often, and it will take more time the more complicated it is. So one of the other things that this suggests is we want to build marketing, training, other processes, systems, standard operating procedures in our business using the Ooda Loop But then what happens is we keep tacking on more and tacking on more, and it becomes overly complicated. So in a perfect world, we start to use the OODA loop to simplify everything. Because the more variables that don't really matter, that we thought did and we built them in, but they really don't, the more of those we can eliminate, the faster the OODA loop will be and the better we will be performing vis-a-vis our competition. So I'll give an example from my business, is that we do short-term OODA loops weekly for the newsletter. So we have a newsletter that goes out 3 to 5 times a year, but you'd be surprised, like we're constantly working on the next one. So what happens is one drops, it goes in the mail, and then we see what works. So one of the things that we've discovered works is we have an article about something that the government has done, so therefore it's complicated and confusing. And we simplify it as much as possible. But then on an insert we'll say, does this apply to you? Should you care? Take this quiz. And people love the quiz, they take the quiz, it produces, like people call up and they say, I took the quiz, it applies to me. Now not everybody that calls does it really apply. So we've learned a couple of things there. Quiz is good because it gets people to interact and they call. Quiz could be better because it didn't sort perfectly. So we now produce better quizzes more often. So that's an OODA loop that's happening once a week. We set aside time on Mondays for me to meet with the editor, which is Lisa, and to talk to the writers, and which are Lisa and me and all the lawyers and people. So we're writing all of our own content. We also test like food. You know, for example, we put food in that's seasonal, and we put cocktail recipes and things like that. And we find that lots of people comment on that. By OODA looping it, we've found out that adding client call-in times have been very, very popular. And by OODA looping, and then we have quarterly meetings where we OODA loop bigger things, like we give clients who spend a lot of money with us gift certificates so that they can have their children or a friend or a family member or somebody else come and get a substantial discount. We found that if we just sent that to them with everything else, that nobody even saw it. So then we separated it out, put it in a separate envelope, then we put it in a box. So we just keep testing all of these different things to see which one finally gets their attention. And then there's the question of, once we find a way that gets their attention, is, are we sending it at the right time? So OODA looping that is not every week because we've got to wait, we're mailing stuff out, but that tends to be on a quarterly basis. So there's a couple of examples for business. We'll each do one for business, then we'll cycle through and each do one for life.
So for me, it's usually a little bit faster, whether it's in my own business or a client's, because I'm working mainly with their marketing systems or my own marketing systems.
And also, when you're selling to people, you're running an ad and they're buying from the internet.
Right.
So it's a faster cycle.
Right. So with the business side of things, it generally happens once a month or more, depending on if we're rolling out a new product or rolling out a new marketing system. With the marketing, we do it almost daily. So I'm going through and watching if I just put out a new email sequence or put out a new campaign, which we went over automated systems last time, we actually go through and look how those emails are performing in open rates and click-through rates, and then figure out why they're performing a certain way. So generally we test beforehand with email subject lines and email content through blogging. So we'll blog and test that content before.
And you'll know, hey, this gets people excited.
Right.
Or riled up or whatever.
Right. Or we identify parts, we have a forum which is super useful to identify parts or concepts or ideas that are super exciting to people that need credit repair. So we target emails to those topics in the forum, and we also write the emails that are similar to those topics in the forum or similar to those blog posts. So we have the initial, hypothesis that that's going to work, and then we optimize them, like you said, almost daily by going through and figuring out, or after a certain percentage.
And that hypothesis, by the way, has come from observing and orienting to what's going on.
Right. So that's going on, daily or every few days.
So observe, orient, you decide, and then you act, you publish the thing.
Yeah, so with one of our clients who's just starting with a new product, we're getting something out there through the hypothesis of a previous product that somebody else put out. We figured out, hey, this might work for this industry. Now we're creating content based off of those interests and the needs of their hypothesized avatar. And then we're going to say, all right, in a month, after people have gone through these ads and after people have gone through a certain number of emails and a certain number of webinars, how do we optimize this? So we'll go back and look at interaction and look at how changing language can affect click-through rates and open rates and other forms of interaction like social media.
A very interesting system, I don't know if you've used this or not, because your volume may not be as high as it needs to be for this, but this really puts the OODA loop in context in the short term, is you and I were at Traffic and Conversion, and we listened to Perry describe this system. So they're going to have a sale. At 9 a.m., they don't run this email to their whole list, they run it to 10% of their list. They run an email with 2 different subject lines, same body copy. One of those subject lines is likely to radically outperform the other. So at 8 o'clock, they now know which is the best. I mean, it could be a 50-50. But if one's 90 and one's 10% of the open rates, they're going to use the one with 90. And then they change the body copy. So they're offering 2 different offers where people could click. They read the thing and say, I want that. And they click on it to buy or opt in or whatever it might be. Now, so by 9 o'clock, so it's 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, they run the one, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, they run the other. They now know this. What's the best of the 2
subject lines
and the offer? So that now when they send to the other 80% of their list, they've already optimized that thing. Now there's a bigger OODA loop going on too, which is that they're learning from each time they do that. They could try different subject lines and test them against one another, things like that, and it's resulting in constant improvement. But it's only by observing and orienting to what's happening in the marketplace, making a decision as to what they're going to do, acting upon it, and then going back and doing it again. So they are forcing themselves. In that example, the OODA loop is at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then there's a bigger OODA loop. Let's take a look at the last 3 sales we ran that way. Another mega idea for OODA loop is just to go back and look at your top 10 emails that you sent out, like which ones got open. Look at those subject lines and look at that body copy and look at what the 10 most commonly clicked on offers are.
Opened and clicked.
Yeah.
And you can do that with blogs as well. In fact, I just finished that with our blogs, and we haven't taken action on it yet.
It's a big project.
That is a big project, but going back to the blogs, we found that majority of the interaction and clicking and commenting and engaging with our blogs and sharing was happening on blogs that dealt with disputing or our dispute software. And so we're putting out more content, especially to which we can go into this too, is our platinum level of membership. We're sending out huge amounts of disputing in our retention sequences, disputing emails.
So again, you've observed, you've oriented based on past data,
right.
You've decided what to do. Have you implemented that?
We have implemented that, and that is getting, so those emails have significantly more interaction and open rates and click-through rates than the other emails that are simply on, here's a topic that you might find interesting in the forum.
But now you'll OODA loop it again because you're going to get data for what you did. Leslie, do you have one?
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of interviewing. So when we meet a subject, I work a lot with my husband's company and his business partner. The 3 of us will sit down with whoever we're interviewing for a pre-interview meeting and kind of see who they best jive with. So that's one way that we OODA loop. We sit there and have a natural conversation and see who they react best to. So then we go back and interview.
So there, your hypothesis, not that they're going to interact best with one or the other.
I mean, we all have our own personal opinion.
but that's the thing is, you do have a hypothesis that they're going to interact best with one of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then we're constantly OODA looping while we're interviewing because we have a set goal of the answers that we're after. We have made up questions that they think that will get the answer that we're after. And then we have to sit there, and the person who they best reacted to might not even give the best answer. So one of us might have to jump in and ask that question in a different way.
Even though you're repugnant to the interview.
Yeah. And sit there and feel it out because we're after, for production reasons and for viewing reasons, we've tested that the viewers want this result in this show. So we have to get that answer that will give the viewers what they're after.
Plus, I know this is true of me. Like, if I'm being interviewed, I'm going to react a certain way to one interviewer, and more than once, when another interviewer has jumped in, I have a different reaction, which makes for good video.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're after. If you want to create drama and all of the...
I don't. That's one thing I don't want to do.
Well, in TV, you might want a little dramatic flair, or someone to break out in a crying because of their answer. Or
as long as it's not me, I'm okay.
Nobody's done that yet on the show.
No.
No crying.
Katie changed her clothes without us noticing, but viewers did.
Yeah.
But there was no crying.
Also,
No.
Sam just jumped in.
Samnath, welcome.
Is that a martial arts.
He is. Samnath is teaching at a martial arts conference, and I hear it's going
for
extremely well.
gym owners.
Is that for gym owners? Yeah.
I believe so.
Yep, exactly. So Samnath, welcome. We miss you, but it's been strong. I think Leslie will probably...
He would be able to tell you about Ooda Looping and fighting.
Yes, and we will have... One of the shows that Sam and I did when you and I were doing these before we developed In Top Form was a great show on sort of 7 fighting strategies and how they applied to business. And when we combine that with Ooda Loop in fighting, I think that could be a great show.
Are on the page.
Oh, they
You
are on
have
the page?
to go to, after we're done here, I think we can go post a link to it, but they are under videos.
Oh, okay. Because that was a great one, and we can get the Ooda Loop. You'll see in one way or another. Now, Leslie, you're wincing.
I'm laughing. Oh, Brian Hagan's on, and he wants you to do a backflip in front of the camera on live TV.
I can't do a backflip. Sorry, Brian. That's physically
He said thank
impossible.
you.
And Tucker, Tucker is constantly Ooda
He
Looping.
does Ooda Loop while killing usually baby animals.
Yes, unfortunately, the geese near us did not have a very good predator instinct, so they brought lots of babies over to Tucker,
Oh no.
and he Ooda Looped
Just
the
for-
situation pretty successfully. I mean, depending on your perspective, not from
Right.
a goose's perspective,
For him,
From a
though,
terrier's perspective.
but from
Yes.
a terrier's perspective.
He
Yeah,
did
so-
really well.
It was horrifying. It seemed that you were there. Time changes, and this is true, I think, in Colonel Boyd's original use of the Ooda Loop in dogfights. But what seemed to last for a half hour, 45 minutes of horrifying massacre was actually just seconds. He was extremely efficient. So now we chase the geese away. We're more prepared. So once again, we're going to share one personal one, but I want to remind everybody, if you're not already registered for 3 Days to Success, super early bird pricing is gone. The early bird pricing is up, and I think we have till maybe June 15th or something like that. But anyway, one way or the other, if you want to know much more about how to actually apply Ooda Loop and this whiteboarding process that I use, we'll help you through it. There's one of 2 ways you can do it. You come to the Business Black Ops, which is 3 days in October in Arizona, and all you have to do is call Lisa at 610-933-8069 if you want that. Leslie also, I don't want to tip the hand too much, but we've got some great gardening food shows coming up.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. That was actually going to be one of my personal Ooda Loops.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how about a personal Ooda Loop? Well, share how you would personally Ooda Loop.
So I have a permaculture garden that I do at my parents' house because
And
they
what
have
does
a lot
that
of
mean?
acreage. So permaculture is all like a self-sustaining gardening system. So you do a lot of companion planting. You see which plants like to grow best with which other plants. The problem with that is you can study lots of places everywhere, and what works for them, I studied a guy in Austria named Sepp Holzer in his permaculture system. What works in Austria in the mountains does not work in Pennsylvania in the suburbs.
It's like turn signal in Jersey. And,
Exactly. So
What
you
works
really
in one state
yeah.
just doesn't work
We
in
have
another.
different pollinators, all different kinds of things, different soil. So you really have to constantly be Ooda Looping and watching the weather and all different things to see, because you never want to plant your tomatoes with your strawberries. That's a big no-no. So if you want to go and have...
Tell us why, pray tell.
So everything, you might know of the Three Sisters. So the Three Sisters is corn, beans, and squash. So the corn grows as a stalk. It gives the beans something to climb up,
Mm-hmm.
and the squash, I believe, gives the right amount of nitrogen and nutrients back into the soil to help the corn grow. So that way you don't have to rotate your corn, which a lot of American farmers do. So, because if you just do all corn, it depletes the soil of all the nutrients that it needs to grow the following year. Same with tomatoes. In America, we rotate our tomatoes. So you can figure out a way, and every garden's different. Every gardener will have their different ones that they like better than the other, to grow your plants with each other, to give everything the right amount of nutrients to make everything grow fully and
So
beautifully.
presumably tomatoes and strawberries are pulling the same nutrients.
Exactly.
They're competing rather than
Exactly.
complementing.
So you want to plant, you can plant parsley and basil with tomatoes. They really like to be planted with eggplant. I always have good luck planting peppers and tomatoes, and then some of the herbs as well in between.
Okay. So OODA looping is you're making longer term observations about what
Yep.
grows
And
well together in your microclimate.
And every year is different. So I have to OODA loop every year. And sometimes twice a year because I split my season.
Now, and if you lived in San Francisco and you had a
Totally.
year-round growing season, you would be okay.
Yeah.
Personal life, OODA loop?
It's similar to the brake light, and you seem to be on New Jersey a lot. But skiing is you're constantly OODA looping because you're hurtling down a mountain
Yeah.
at
Great example.
several miles per hour. So you're observing.
Snow conditions.
Right, you're observing snow conditions, you're observing what's in front of you, you're observing like how you need to move your body to react. So I guess that's more of orienting and reacting is how you're moving your body to different snow conditions and what's in front of you and when you need to turn. And then you're taking like the actual physical action of moving your body.
But by moving, you're immediately triggering the need to do
Another OODA loop.
This-
So every time you make a shift, you're
This gets to training in anything. But say, for example, that you are interested in self-defense and Sam has trained you so that you can modify weapons from whatever. I mean, when you guys were kids, I used to ask you at many social events who seemed to pose the most danger, what you would use to kill them.
right, what weapons.
Exactly.
Especially cotillion.
Yes, and cotillion too. So here's the one use is that if you decide to go to training with some kind of lethal force, like a handgun, for example, many people train by learning how to use a handgun safely, and then learning how to assemble and disassemble and to clean the handgun, and then to fire the handgun at a range where the ammunition is sitting here and the handgun's here, and you take all your time. And
Generally, you're not drawing.
you're not drawing. But if you really wanted to conceal carry and to have this gun available for self-defense, you would need to train with the type of holster on that you're going to carry it in. You'd need to train to draw. You would need ultimately to train to fire while moving, because now you've added multiple variables again, so that's going to slow down the OODA loop. So you have to train in all of those so that you could become more used to it. Because people, like I said, the normalcy bias is going to be if you're carrying and you hear a gunshot, you're not going to think that's a gunshot. You're going to have a bias for some normal explanation. And so you're going to have very little time to react. And when you're moving, remember, it's like the fighter pilot that's moving so that the MiG has to move and they're changing the OODA loop. So anything that you do, you should learn to do it with more variables and then use OODA, subtract the variables and make the system simpler, and you're going to be way more efficient. And what the OODA loop is going to tell you is which of the variables you thought really mattered and which didn't. So in marketing, for example, we could do all of these things. We could test color, we could test sending something in a plain manila envelope versus a Tyvek envelope versus priority mail. Well, if we're spending $4 more for priority mail and the same number of people open it and read it, it doesn't make sense to spend that extra money, and we can simplify, unless and until something changes, but the OODA loop is going to tell us that. So the title was OODA Loop, the fastest and best way to ever improving goals, systems, decisions, and success in life, based on the work of Colonel Boyd and God. It's not an exaggeration, and the reason that we've got both Colonel Boyd and God there is Colonel Boyd had a really elegant, simple expression of this thing that the brain is already doing by becoming aware of it and training ourselves to do the Ooda Loop and to repeat it just a little bit more frequently, we're going to wreak havoc on our competition and we're going to get better at what we do. So I had a great time. I think we missed some, but I enjoyed it. Leslie?
I had a great time. I think Tucker had a great time.
Tucker had an awesome time. We should get Tucker in the shop one more time.
He's in my
He's
shop.
on, yeah, the webcam.
Yeah,
Is he on the
online.
webcam?
Yep.
Awesome. Yes.
He's quite the dog.
Alex, good
I had
time?
a pretty good time.
The backflip request was a new first.
Yeah.
It's new. I can't do a backflip. I don't know if Sam can.
I I can just do tumbles, which is
I can roll.
Yeah,
I can
somersaults.
roll too.
All day
I
long.
can't even do a
I can even roll sideways down the hill.
Right, that's how I can do it.
Listen, everybody, it was great to have you with us. Here is the thing. If you know anybody that would enjoy the benefits of doing Ooda Loop more often and understanding it, be sure to share this. Like it before you go. And here's the biggest thing you could do is go and subscribe to the
Top 4
In Top 4 podcast on iTunes,
Google
Stitcher,
Play,
Google Play.
Stitcher. I think we're on
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, maybe.
Wherever you go, though, give us, if you go to iTunes, which is easy, give us a 5-star rating. Oh, we have a book to give away. I promise we'll give it away next week. We've picked, but I can't remember who it is. Somebody won Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans. Yeah. So let's put another Tools of Titans up for June. So if you like us or share, if you give us a 5-star rating, just let us know, email us, let us know, and we will enter you to win. We're going to do another Tools of Titans, which is an awesome resource. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Be in top form.
Bye.